Currently, we are in Grand Island, Nebraska. I'm here to talk about the unsolved Peak family murders. But before we get into that story, really quickly, I want to talk about Janet Callies. She's been missing now for 50 years. What used to be here back in the 70s and 80s was a nightclub called the Sundowner. November 15th, 1980, 40-year-old Janet Callies came here presumably to possibly have a drink. Later on that evening, she was supposed to meet up with her daughter to have dinner here in town. This was the very last known location that Janet was seen alive. Janet is described as a white female, approximately 5'2" and weighs around 115 to 120 pounds. Now, when she was here at the Sundowner on that evening, she was driving her 1975 Dodge Dart. It was either maroon and white or red and white with Nebraska license plate 8C4696. Another unusual aspect to this case is that serial killers Otis Toole and Henry Lee Lucas claimed that they met Janet at this bar, targeted her, and killed her. Now, her car has never been found. Otis Toole and Henry Lee Lucas, when it comes to the subject of serial killers, in my personal opinion, are the biggest losers that ever existed that had anything to do with this subject. The constant lies, sending authorities on a wild goose chase for all of their crimes, most of them they did not commit. Nobody truly knows how many people Otis Toole and Henry Lee Lucas killed, but they claimed that they murdered Janet, took her car up by the Canadian border, and sold it for scrap. Now, whether that's true or not, nobody knows. A couple of people now dead. Good riddance to bad rubbish. Constant lying. Authorities truly do not know what happened to Janet. This is just simply another unsolved disappearance that just one of many thousands and thousands of people who have practically left the face of the earth. This is a pretty upscale neighborhood here in the Grand Island, Nebraska area. Now, back in 1972, lived a family with the last name of Peak. It was William Peak, his wife Bernice, and their 14-year-old daughter Barbara. The Peaks had 3 other kids. 2 daughters were grown with their own families, and they had one that was going to Nebraska University. Originally, the Peaks weren't from Grand Island, but they came here because Bernice's brother, Bob Allen, had promised him a job. Bob Allen had a small chain of drugstores in Nebraska. I think it was called Allen's. And he also had a department store. It was in the beginning stages of possibly him coming out with these, what he called them, mega stores back in those days. I'm guessing something like a Target, like just a department store that sold other things. And he had told William that he wanted him to either be the vice president or something along those lines. They were gonna build a mega department store here in Grand Island. So they had a meeting with the city council to get their permits to start building on September 11th of 1972. William was a highly decorated military veteran. He had just retired from the military. He had seen action in World War II. He worked for some defense agency during Vietnam. When he first joined the military, he had gone to a Russian language school for the first 3 years of his career, or actually after World War II, I believe he went to a Russian language school. And the last of his known military service was him. He would make some trips out to Russia, Hungary, surrounding countries in those areas. So on or around September 9th, 1972, one of the neighbors that lived in this very neighborhood had either walked or driven by the Peak family residence and noticed that the TV was very, very loud. It was on, they remember, from 10:30 p.m. at night till around 2 o'clock in the morning. And on that summer evening, it was very windy, kind of like how it is now. So the following day, September 11th, 1972, they're supposed to meet with the city council to get the permits. On the day before that, Bernice's parents, they were supposed to come over to watch television with William and Bernice. So they drive down this street and they make a right on Pheasant Drive. And in the story, either they already had a key or the door was open. I'm not quite sure, but they go inside the residence and they have a dog, an Irish settler. And this dog is acting really, really strange. And Bernice's parents is like, what's this dog doing? It's like just barking or just acting weird. So it's almost like, I believe the dog kind of led them to the master bedroom. And when they got to that bedroom, they see Bernice, Barbara, and William all dead. Well, it looked like they were dead in the beginning. Immediately they called 911 and authorities arrived. And it was determined that William and Barbara, they were both killed. They were dead, declared dead at the scene of the crime. However, Bernice, she was still alive, barely. She was taken to the hospital where she fought for her life for about 2 weeks. At one moment, she was in stable condition, but she was unable to talk. They were trying to ask her, like, who did this? How many people did this? She couldn't communicate, but she had held up maybe, I don't think they really knew how many fingers she was holding up. It could have been 2, it could have been 3. And tragically, she would end up dying from her injuries. Now, there's not a whole lot to this story. Of course, this is a neighborhood where, everyone knows everybody. So a stranger walking in the neighborhood, kind of like me, would, raise some alarms. The only description of anybody that would seem out of place was a couple of long-haired, scraggly-looking guys driving a blue Chevrolet. Doesn't say the model that they were driving, but they were seen in the area, so they kind of look like, yeah, they don't belong here. What are they doing here? This is the home where the murders occurred, and currently still unsolved to this very day at the recording of this video. Now, again, this is just one of those stories that there's going to be a lot of hearsay on who did what, any known suspects or whatever. You had the older daughter that was in school at the time, possibly hanging around with the wrong crowd, and they took revenge for something that she did. They were even thinking that people might have thought that the Peaks were wealthy and that this was some kind of a robbery that went wrong, obviously, something along those lines. I mean, even Bob Allen, Bernice's brother, I believe he passed away about 15 years ago. He had put up a reward in this case, and he went to his grave not knowing who murdered his sister, his niece, and his stepbrother. But he has said, I thought it was kind of odd, in a newspaper article, he said that maybe he felt that there was a peeping Tom in the area that targeted Barbara because she had what he called an adult torso. We gotta remember that this guy was born in I think the 20s or the late 20s. So people, spoke differently back then. So obviously he meant that, she was, she had like a womanly body, and maybe some pervert lusted after her, and in the process just went in there and killed everybody. I don't know how believable that is. I mean, who knows? The weapon that was responsible for the murders, it was a 22 caliber, probably a rifle. Now, a 22 caliber rifle is not going to be something that you're going to bring to execute 3 people, in my opinion. it gets the job done, but it's not something that you definitely bring to do some, you know, dastardly things such as that. However, you could bring it because it's not going to make a whole lot of noise versus if you had brought a bigger caliber rifle. So you factor that in with the TV being loud, it being windy that day, a small caliber rifle. Nobody heard a thing. Nobody heard the shots. And you could also, people are also thinking about Williams' military service. There's even talk of him possibly being a spy. Now, his trips going into Russia, you know, it would make people wonder, was this some kind of a KGB style hit, or was this done by our own government? I mean, who knows? The only thing that was taken from the home was Williams' wallet, which was found, I believe, a few miles away. Wallet was found in one side of town on Oklahoma and Sycamore streets, and credit cards were found on another street somewhere else. So they're just probably going through the wallet, taking the money and just throwing it out or whatever. If this was a hit job or a professional government hit job, I don't think that they're going to leave that wallet with possible fingerprints. I'm sure they dusted for fingerprints on the wallet, and obviously they didn't find any. This is just one of these unsolved murders that nobody knows. There's just not a whole lot of information. There's no DNA, there's no fingerprints, nothing at all. And obviously, it was more than one person who committed this crime. But, you know, sad to say, Bernice took the identity of the killer or killers to her grave because unfortunately she was not able to communicate what happened. The Peaks are buried at Arlington Cemetery there in Virginia, and I have quite a huge video planned for that place when I get out to Virginia. I'm not sure if it's going to be this year or not. That remains to be seen, but I definitely will go out there and include them in a possible future Faces in Death video, because there's quite a number of other graves there that I want to see as well, including John F. Kennedy. Who killed the Peaks? I have no idea. This very lovely subdivision, little do the people that live here now know that it was the scene of a horrific murder 50 years ago. All right, guys, I'm hitting the road. I'm getting out of here. I will see you on the next video. Be good, y'all. Peace out.